The captain was locked out of his own cockpit, and inside, someone refused to open the door. Someone was still breathing, calm, regular, uninterrupted. Everything looked normal. The aircraft was functioning perfectly. Nothing was failing, except one thing: trust. Yet the plane was descending. No distress call, no response from the cockpit, just a controlled descent, with no one able to stop it. Toward the French Alps. On March 24th, 2015, Germanwings Flight 9525 departed Barcelona for Düsseldorf. 150 people were on board. For 8 minutes, they were all alive, while only one person knew they were going to die. Inside the cockpit voice recorder, investigators would later hear something disturbing: a captain trying to get back inside, knocking, calling, trying to break the reinforced door. And inside the cockpit, only breathing, calm, regular, as the aircraft continued descending, because the only person who could stop it was the one causing it. Germanwings Flight 9525 departed Barcelona at 10:01 in the morning. The flight was slightly delayed, nothing unusual. The aircraft was an Airbus A320, a routine European flight, 2 pilots, 4 cabin crew, 144 passengers. Among them were students returning from a school exchange, opera singers, business travelers, families, people expecting to land in Düsseldorf within hours. Inside the cockpit sat Captain Patrick Sondenheimer, 34 years old, more than 6,000 flight hours, highly experienced on the Airbus A320. Next to him sat First Officer Andreas Lubitz, 27 years old, relatively new to the airline, about 630 flight hours. Everything about the flight appeared routine. Nothing suggested what was about to happen. At 10:30, the aircraft reached cruise altitude, 38,000 feet. Shortly afterward, the captain left the cockpit, likely to use the restroom, a completely normal procedure. What happened next would later be reconstructed from cockpit voice recorder data. After the captain left, the cockpit door was locked from the inside. When he returned, he could not get back in. The captain requested entry through the intercom. No response. He entered the emergency access code. Still no response. Investigators later confirmed the access request had been manually denied. From inside the cockpit, the captain knocked, then pounded on the door, then tried to force it open. Inside the cockpit, investigators would later identify one chilling detail: breathing, calm, regular, no panic, no distress call, no communication. At 10:31, the aircraft began descending, without air traffic control clearance, without explanation, without radio response. Controllers attempted contact, no reply. The aircraft continued descending steadily, approximately 3,400 feet per minute. This was not a loss of control, not turbulence, not a dive. It was a controlled descent, a deliberate flight path toward terrain. A French Mirage fighter jet was scrambled, but there was not enough time. Radar contact was lost at 10:40. Impact occurred at 10:41. The aircraft struck the mountain at roughly 700 kilometers per hour. The debris field spread across 2 square kilometers. There were no survivors. When investigators recovered the cockpit voice recorder, they found something deeply disturbing. The captain's attempts to re-enter were clearly audible, knocking, shouting, trying to break the reinforced cockpit door. Inside, silence, except breathing. In the final seconds, passengers' screams were recorded. Investigators quickly turned to one question: who was the man inside the cockpit? First Officer Andreas Lubitz joined Germanwings in 2013. He completed Lufthansa's pilot training program. He passed required medical checks. He held a valid commercial pilot license. On paper, everything appeared normal, but the investigation soon revealed a more complicated history. Years earlier, Lubitz had suffered a severe depressive episode. In 2008, his training had been interrupted for psychiatric treatment. After treatment, he was eventually cleared to continue, and he returned to flight training, but investigators later determined his psychological struggles may not have fully resolved. After the crash, investigators searched Lubitz's home. What they discovered raised serious questions. Doctors had recently declared him unfit for work. A medical note stated he should not be flying. Germanwings never received this document. Investigators later found he had torn up the sick leave note, including one covering the day of the crash. German privacy laws prevented doctors from informing employers. The system depended on pilots reporting their own medical condition. In this case, that system failed. Investigators uncovered additional troubling details. Lubitz had been prescribed antidepressants, escitalopram, mirtazapine, and a sleep medication. Toxicology later confirmed these medications were present in his system. Investigators also discovered internet searches about suicide methods, searches about cockpit door security, searches about medical treatments. None of these alone proved intent, but together they formed a disturbing pattern. Flight data revealed another critical detail. After the captain left the cockpit, the autopilot altitude setting was changed from cruise altitude to just 100 feet. This was not system failure. This was a manual input. Investigators also discovered something else. Earlier that same day, during the Düsseldorf to Barcelona flight, Lubitz had tested similar descent inputs several times while alone in the cockpit. This became one of the most significant findings of the investigation. In March 2016, French investigators released their final report. Their conclusion was clear. The descent was intentional. The report stated the crash resulted from deliberate actions by the first officer. It also identified a systemic weakness. Medical certification relied heavily on self-reporting. In this case, that safeguard did not work. The aviation industry reacted immediately. Many airlines introduced a new policy. 2 authorized individuals must always be present in the cockpit. If one pilot leaves, another crew member must enter. This rule spread quickly across Europe and beyond. But by 2017, regulators softened the recommendation, allowing airlines to make their own risk assessments. The industry reacted fast, but the long-term solution remained debated. Not everyone accepted the official findings. 2 years later, Lubitz's family publicly rejected the conclusion. His father claimed they did not believe the crash was intentional. A report commissioned by the family suggested alternative explanations: possible unconsciousness, possible cockpit door malfunction, possible environmental factors. These claims received media attention, but investigators maintained their conclusion. The available evidence supported intentional action. The debate highlighted how complex aviation investigations can become. The tragedy triggered major discussion about mental health in aviation. Should psychological screening increase? Should doctors be allowed to break confidentiality for safety? Should airlines monitor pilots more closely? Experts warned predicting individual psychological breakdowns remains extremely difficult. Even extensive screening cannot guarantee prevention. This revealed a difficult reality. Modern aviation can manage technical risk, Human risk is harder. Germanwings Flight 9525 did not fail because of engineering. The aircraft performed exactly as designed. The weather was not extreme. The controls responded normally. Everything worked, except one thing: trust. Modern aviation depends on trust. Trust in systems, trust in procedures, trust in people. And on March 24th, 2015, that trust was tested in a way the industry had never expected. Because sometimes, the greatest risk in aviation is not mechanical failure. It is the human factor no checklist can fully predict.